Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation. This is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. Our guest is one of the most important lyricists in the history of musical theater, and he's one of our favorite guests. Here to introduce him, Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
We're joined tonight by Larry Hart, who wrote a number of big shows with Richard Rodgers, all fabulous. No, in fact, our guest is one of our favorite guests here on Theater Talk. He's been here a number of times, and he has a standing invitation whenever he's in New York to swing by the set and tell us what's going on in the world of Tim Rice, who wrote Evita and Jesus Christ Superstar and The Lion King and Chess, which is coming back. And we are very happy to be joined tonight by Tim Rice. Welcome to Theater Talk.
Thank you, Michael.
Talking of chess, you are putting together a big concert at the Royal Albert Hall. Chess, many people who love the theater have a great spot in their heart for that beautiful score that you wrote with Benny and Bjorn of ABBA. Are you going to get it right, though, this time?
Well, I hope so.
There have been many attempts to get chess right.
I always think we got it right on the record.
Yeah.
And I've tried to go back to the record. I mean, chess is now, 20 years old or something amazing, over 20 years old. And the London production was pretty successful. It was a hit. It got its money back. It ran for 3 or 4 years. But we were bedeviled with bad luck in that Michael Bennett was ill and had to come off the show at the last minute. And the new director, Trevor Nunn, came in and had all these resources that he hadn't chosen himself. They were very good actors, great sets, but he kind of had to start again, except he couldn't start again because he had all this clobber. Right. He had 64 TV screens, he had forklift trucks, he had cast of thousands. And it was a miracle that we got away with it in London at all. But then it came to New York, and the decision was taken to put a book into it, and that I don't think worked at all, and it got longer and longer and more confused. And it's been done so many times over the years. And after 4 or 5 years of this, I just thought, I don't want to know any more about this, which was a tragedy because the songs are fantastic.
Yeah, great songs.
And so finally, I was always thinking, I've got to get back to chess. It is almost my favorite score of all the stuff I've worked on. And I'm sure it could be made to work dramatically as well as I think it could. And finally, I got together with a very well-known director in England, Hugh Wooldridge, who shares my passion for the piece, and he said, let's just do a great concert. It'll be dramatically staged to a certain extent. I mean, the characters will react with each other. They won't just get up and sing the songs. But I hope, my dream is that at the end of this 2-day run, I can say, this is the version I like, right, and this is the version that if you want to do it, please do this version. I can't stop people doing 8 other different versions.
But you've eliminated the book from this concert.
Yeah, well, we've gone back to we didn't need a book.
Yeah, the songs tell the story.
The songs tell the story. Yeah, and in London, in fact, there was not much book. There was the odd spoken line, but it's like Evita or Superstar. Yeah. It works or not as an opera.
And you created these kind of shows. I mean, you and Andrew created the sung through musical, Jesus Christ Superstar.
I guess we kind of brought it back to the popular theatre, almost by mistake, because when we did Superstar back in the Stone Age, we were starting out, nobody wanted to know about it. So we were forced to do it as a record. And we thought, well, that's better than nothing. But because we did it as a record, we had to make it short, because in those days, I don't know if you remember, Michael, but they were round
plastic
bits.
Talk to Susan.
Susan, she would never remember. They were round bits of plastic with a hole in the middle, and they were very limited in time. And so we had to make the piece short. We had to get rid of the book, because you can't have a dialogue, because we were thinking of having Jesus come in and say, hi everybody,
my name is Jesus.
Let's have supper, my name is Jesus. That would have been lethal.
Yes.
And had we done it in the theatre, had we been approved of by the Cameron Macintoshes of the day, which we weren't, then I don't think Superstar would have ever got off the ground. But because we did it on record, and because we had to eliminate the book, we had to make it much more rocky, because we were aiming, Our Only Hope was radio play, and we were able to write contemporary music rather than just go for rather old-fashioned Broadway-type arrangements. It turned it into a completely different piece, and that's why it was a hit.
Yeah,
because it was unusual. I mean, whatever you may say about it, it was quite a naive piece in many ways, but it was certainly original.
Did Tom O'Horgan bring anything to the table at that time?
He was the director.
Yes.
Yeah, he bought some strange people.
No, actually, Tom,
because he directed Hair, and then he came to you.
Tom was brilliant. The production on Broadway didn't, I mean, I'm sure Tom would admit, didn't really work, but he was ahead of his time, and we were struggling with technology that wasn't quite up to it, and it was the first time, I mean, Hair, of course, but Hair didn't really have a big orchestra. We were trying to combine the elements of a big orchestra and rock, and we were doing it with radio mics that didn't quite work, and then we had to have handheld mics, and it was actually, there were some brilliant things in it, but also, you remember, it's 1971, and we didn't, the audience wasn't quite there, because the hairy rockers of the day would never be seen dead in a Broadway theatre. And the Broadway regulars thought, this is too loud, this is noisy rock music. In 1981, we'd helped, and other people, of course, we'd converted, people who like rock into theatre a bit. And also, they'd grown up. So nowadays, people don't distinguish between rock and
Well, we
Broadway.
just had the creators of Passing Strange on this show last week, and they were saying that the Schuberts, their producers, felt that show was too loud.
Yeah, that's the complaint that Jerry Schoenfeld, the chairman of the Schubert organization, keeps giving them, is it's too loud. It's a rock musical.
If it's too loud, you're too old.
Exactly. But it's an interesting point, though. I mean, you and Andrew Lloyd Webber began the rock musical, and it looked for a time...
Well, Hair did, really.
Hair, okay,
But we kind of put a story to it.
Right.
But it was an accident in a way.
Yeah. But it looked for a time that, all right, this was a new way for the musical theater to go, but no one really followed you guys for a long time writing rock style.
They tried, it just didn't work.
There were a few tries. We, of course, did Evita, which was less rock, but it was definitely contemporary. And I think it was a more grown-up piece than Superstar. It was better constructed, and I think it's probably, of the shows we did, the best theatre piece. I mean, Joseph is the one that will last forever, when we're all 10 feet underground. They'll still be bashing out Joseph, and the others may well disappear. But that's because it's Peter Pan. It's that sort of thing. But Evita, I think we did quite a good job on Evita. But that time around, we deliberately went for the record first, and we thought it worked with Superstar by mistake. Let's deliberately get the score right, and it worked again.
You were supposed to have been immortal. That's all they wanted. Not much to ask for. The truth is, I never left you. All through my wild days, my mad existence.
I saw the original production. You also had Hal Prince really at the top of his game. Then,
yes, it was
giving
brilliant.
you one of the most sensational productions ever seen.
It was superb. I mean, we were very lucky to get Hal, and we were honoured to get Hal.
Yeah.
And he came over to London. We had to wait a bit for him, but it was worth it. And we found a fantastic cast in London, and it was just one of those great moments. I mean, the opening night of Evita, I don't think that'll ever be topped for me.
Opening night in London or
in
New
London,
York?
in London.
In London.
I mean, great in New York, but we'd kind of done it once already.
Right.
Also, we got terrible reviews here.
Oh, really?
Awful. Which actually, it proves one thing, is that the so-called butchers of Broadway cannot destroy a show if the public want to go.
Wants to go.
And we got terrible reviews for Evita.
Wasn't the complaint about Evita here that you were kind of glamorizing fascism?
Yeah. Well, that was one of the complaints. It was a minor one of crappy music and awful words were other ones.
Celebrating Eva Peron, right?
Well, I mean, the point is, I said it, I'm blue in the face to these morons, was she is glamorous. That is the story. If you take out the glamour, there's no story.
Well,
the
that's
point
why she
of the
was
story
who she
is
was, yeah.
she was dangerous because she was glamorous. If she'd been an ugly old bat, or a boring South American dictator, a bloke with a moustache who one of the regular guys who aren't that nice, then it wouldn't have been that interesting.
Yeah.
It was the fact that she was. Also, I have to say, people say, but you quite like her, don't you? I say, well, in a way I do. There are things I did admire in her. I mean, she wasn't a mass murderer, Che Guevara probably polished off more people than she did.
Well, we need not go into the ethics of Evita Peron.
No, I'm not saying she's great. I'm not defending her.
I didn't feel you were in the musical. I felt you were noting how a superstar becomes a political force.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How seductive.
How did you feel about the Madonna movie?
I thought Madonna was great, just perfect for it, because people said, you know, oh, you've got to have a great film actress. I said, you don't really need technically an actress, somebody who's, you know, the Meryl Streep, a brilliant film actress. You want somebody who can sell songs, who can emote through singing, and that's what Madonna is brilliant at.
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
Every time I see a clip of Evita, you know, almost any 10-minute clip, I think, wow, isn't that great?
I thought she was great until she got pregnant when she was supposed to be wasting away from cancer. And I thought that was
I didn't notice that.
I thought that was
She was pregnant?
bad.
Oh, well.
You have a great cast, though, for the chess concert in London. You've got Idina Menzel.
Yeah.
And who's
Josh Groban.
Josh Groban.
Adam Pascal.
Adam Pascal. Yeah, not.
I mean,
if you can't sell it with that cast, then
we
you
have
got to give it up.
We've got 2 nights at the Albert Hall, which is quite a big place to fill, and we've actually sold out both nights. There's a few seats behind pillars, which if you come over, Michael, you'll get one of those. But really, it's just to say to people, look, this is a good score. It can work dramatically. This is the version we want you to do. Please, please.
I remember when they opened up the New Amsterdam Theatre with your King David concert, and that was quite wonderful.
Yes, that was fun, although I think in retrospect, I was with Alan Menken this week. In fact, one of the reasons I'm over here is to talk about whether King David has a future, which I hope it does. But I think we were slightly fell between two stools in that the Amsterdam Theatre, the New Amsterdam, was being reopened. This was in 1997, I think. Yeah. And it's a fantastic building. And King David went into it for 9 days. And it was kind of, people thought it was a big Broadway show, and we were doing a concert. And I think we sort of, people who came to see the show thought, well, this is not much of a Broadway show for the New Amsterdam. I think we made a little mistake there. We should have either said, we'll do King David as a grown-up show and do it for, you know, however long we can run it, or else just do it as a straight concert somewhere else.
Are you putting it together as a grown-up show now with Alan, or you're working with him?
We'd like to. I mean, it's all very interesting. If this Albert Hall thing works, we might do King David there, just to... I mean, what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do with some of these pieces, is to go back to the formula of when Andrew and I started. And let's get the score dead right. Let's not worry at the moment about whether, you know, scene 14 can follow from scene 13. Let's not worry about the set, the costumes. Let's just get the show right, the score. And I think we've done that with chess. I hope the Albert Hall will prove that. And King David's got a cracking score. I mean, Alan Menken is so good. I mean, I'm a great, great fan of Alan's. And it will be wonderful to get King David off and running with him, because we've done bits of shows together and we've had great success, but we haven't actually done a whole show other than King David from, you know, bar 1 to bar 2008.
Now there's a competing chess out there, because in Los Angeles, Jason Alexander has a company out there and he's putting a chess out there. And I know the Schuberts, who produced chess originally on Broadway, are quite keen on that production out in Los Angeles. So there's sort of competing productions going on here.
Well, this, I mean, for all I know, this Jason Alexander version may be brilliant. It may be much better than the version we're doing, and it may be the one that I'll say, no, don't do mine, do Jason's forevermore. But that version's not happening until the end of the year, the earliest. And I'm waiting to see. I mean, there have been so many versions of chess, and some have been quite fun. I went to one in Estonia the other day, in Tallinn, at the Opera House there. It was in Estonian, and rather bizarrely, the lyrics were translated back and used as surtitles above the in English. So I got a kind of
surtitles,
strange translation of my own stuff. You know, English, Estonian, English. And they completely changed the plot. What they decided to do, they gave up on understanding it. So what they did, they set half of the show backstage. There was the plot they had was a group of people were putting on chess, But the guys acting in it, the guys and girls acting in it, were having these affairs and falling in love with each other.
So it was like a backstage
there was a backstage
musical.
bit, and then the stage would revolve, and they'd do a big company number, like the ABBA song. Then it would go back around, and then one of them would sing Nobody's Side to it, and it was weird. Actually, I loved it. It was great.
But do you ever go, wow, I have such a huge artistic empire that I can completely lose control of who does my stuff, so that, you know, a version of chess, you can be competing with yourself?
Well, yes, that does happen. I mean, I do lose control of everything, frankly. but I mean, some of the shows are kind of set in stone, like Evita.
Yeah.
Or Lion King, for that matter.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Well, that's Disney.
But, exactly. But chess has been that kind of wayward child, you know, the one on drugs that you hope you'll get right.
Out.
But I quite like that. I mean, Superstar, you see, Tom O'Horgan's version, which didn't work perfectly on Broadway, but did work brilliantly in the open-air theatre in LA.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 years later, his version in Los Angeles was fantastic. It kind of fitted better in this amphitheatre, Universal Amphitheatre. But the good thing about that, in a way, I mean, bad luck on Tom, but the good thing about Broadway not being easily doable again was that we had all these different versions of Superstar, and it was quite nice if you're lucky enough to have a hit show and you're asked to go and see it all around the world. It's
Yeah,
quite
that's
nice
one of the benefits
not
of it.
to see the same version every time. And even if it's dire, it's quite funny.
Right.
Evita tends to be done the same way all the time, or Hal's great production. But recently we had a revival in London by Michael Grandage, which actually was great.
It's quite good, yeah.
And it didn't do as well as it should have done. But I really loved it, with a wonderful actress called Elena Roger in the leading role. First time I'd seen an Argentine lady sing it. And it was great to see a different version.
Yeah.
What's the worst Tim Rice production you've seen out there in the world?
Who watches this program? I don't know. I mean, you know, I've seen some pretty horrendous, you know, amateurish versions. I mean, literally amateur. It'd be unfair. I mean, I'm flattered. I mean, if anybody wants to do it, you think, well, it's very nice of them.
Yeah.
Well, Joseph
Joseph gets done all over.
Joseph's done by schools, and in fact,
But it
no,
must
I
be a
love
joy
seeing
to see it
schools
then.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's a new Joseph running in London at the moment, which is a big hit. Primarily because it's a brilliant show, but the other reason, which might have something to do with it, was the fact that it was done on reality TV. Which I think
yes,
you
we heard
had
about
here.
that.
We have, yeah, God help us, yes.
It's much harder here, because why would anybody outside of New York be interested in who's going to,
Right.
I don't know.
You know, your former writing partner, Andrew Lloyd Webber, has reinvented himself as Andrew Lloyd Webber, reality TV
He is
star.
a serious television star now. It's amazing. He turns up on all the chat shows. He's done very well. He's actually very good. He's being himself. He's funny. He's quirky. And, you know, he's, to put it mildly, not like any other TV star.
Yes.
So he's even been acting himself in a soap.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, where will this end?
Now, you could easily have been a judge on the Joseph show. You could be a reality TV star yourself.
I don't think I mean, it's just turning up every week. Imagine having to go. Also, I did find it quite funny. You watch all these judges, and they're all great as TV stars, because they all say things like, "You are the greatest performer I've seen since Liza Minnelli."
Well, that's yes, and they say that every week, yeah.
And you say it every week to somebody. I think, no, you're not. I know if I were on, I'd say, yeah, not bad. Yes, not bad. And that would be, the whole country would hate me. You know, the television ratings would go like, Lee Mead, who emerged, is very good. He's the guy playing Joseph.
Yeah.
Well, he would have emerged in auditions, I'm sure.
To see for certain what I thought I knew.
You know, here they did it with Grease, and nobody emerged, but they had to use them anyway. And
Really?
now they've got this production of Grease,
With
which
two
is-
terrible leads
yeah,
in it,
which,
from
which
picked
is
from the
sell-
TV, yeah.
which she's okay, but you know,
But is it a hit?
You can't cast on television the same way.
No, it seems to be something that has worked for the West End.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, England is geographically much smaller.
Right, right.
And so almost anybody voting
But,
has
yeah.
a chance to get to London to see it.
Right, but with casting, you always have to be able to go and say, oh, well, surely we must find someone else and dig them out of your old files, rather than having to put the one who climbs up the pyramid.
Well, I think they have I mean, Lee Mead was pretty good. And I think, I mean, of course, they didn't rig it. Absolutely not. I promise you. But they were able to show him off in ways that might eliminate any possibility that somebody else would get it. And Andrew, quite rightly, had a veto on almost every week. He could save somebody, and he did save one very nice young man who got right back to the final. But had it just been the public, he wouldn't even have been in the final.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have any say behind
No.
the scenes at all
No.
in the casting?
I was
of this?
away for most of it. I didn't. I mean, I was actually in West Indies watching the cricket.
Yeah, that's where I saw you down in
That's
down
right.
in Barbados.
I'm doing a show in Barbados, and and when I came back to England, people didn't realise I'd been away, and they were saying, "Well, who do you think's the best Joseph?"
Right, where
I said,
were
"Well,
you?"
I hadn't actually seen the show. And they say, "What?" But I did see the last 4 or 5. I mean, I think it's great fun, and but it's not something I would personally want to do every week in, week out.
Yeah.
Just turning up, sitting in rehearsals,
Everybody always wants to know: are you and Andrew ever going to get back together and do a show?
Well, we've written the odd song together, and
Won the odd Oscar.
we won an Oscar together.
Yes.
I've forgotten about that. But I don't know. I mean, we're good mates, and I mean, I'm going to his 60th birthday party any minute. There'll be a national holiday for that, I think. And I just feel that, firstly, we'd have to have a subject we both wanted to work on, which is, difficult. And secondly, I would be very wary because whatever reputation we have, we might sink it. We're very lucky we did 3 big hits. They're all still around, and I think I'm proud of those shows. They're great.
They're
and
classics. But
it would be awful if we did one 30 years later, which was a complete
is that
flop.
stultifying to a creative person of your stature in general, that you think, I don't want to undermine? I mean, is that a freezing quality?
I think as you go on, you get a bit worried about a reputation, I suppose. There again, maybe I don't really. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't have the same desire that Andrew has. I've got to do a new show every so often.
Right.
I mean,
He's crazy about that. He's always
good for him.
Yeah.
But I'd rather do nothing I'd rather do nothing than almost anything. But I'd rather do nothing than do something that I wasn't enthusiastic about. But I have just written a complete draft, a play I've written really on Machiavelli, which
Really?
I'm really enthusiastic about that. And I'm,
Not a musical, a play,
Well, it
straight
might
play.
be a musical. I've written it with like I did with Evita. Although with Evita, I was working on Evita for a few months on my own, nearly a year actually, and I drafted the storyline completely. With Machiavelli, I've done the same thing. I thought, I'm going to do what I did with Evita. I'm not going to think about music. I'm going to write. It's a great story. I've done that. I've written, and I got so into it that I began writing long speeches, and I've now written a play with, notes saying "song here." But I'm now thinking, I'm not sure I need a song.
Interesting. First play you've ever written? Have you?
Yes, I've never written a play. I mean, if I was hit by a bus tomorrow, you could put it on. It wouldn't be very good because it's my first draft, but it's actually a full-length, finished play.
Wow. Well, stay away from buses and keep cracking.
Yeah. But I'm going to do a second draft, and then I'm going to say, do I need music? Do I want music? It's quite interesting at this stage in my career to think, well, I'll maybe do something different. Try and be Tom Stoppard. Move over, Tom.
Yeah, but then the play has to be 8 hours long.
Oh, it'll be at least 8 hours long.
Who would you, anyone in mind, if you decide to go the musical route, any composer you would like to work with whom you haven't worked with before?
Who I haven't worked with? Gosh, I mean, well, one of my favourite, I've got 2 great composers who I know. One is Barry Gibb, who I think is just a fantastic composer, who's excuse me, often said, I'd like to do something in the theatre.
He should.
And the other, of course, is the great Burt Bacharach, who I've just written a song with, funnily enough.
For what?
Well, it's really just for his concerts, and it's been recorded by a wonderful Dutch singer called Trini Oosterhuis, and it's been a huge hit in Holland in English. So now we're thinking it's just literally in the last few weeks. You can get it on iTunes, I'm sure.
What's it called?
Who'll Speak for Love, and it's the title track of Burt's latest album. And I thought, well, it might be quite fun to see if we can do something a bit longer. I don't know.
It would be interesting if you could crack that, because I think Burt Bacharach wrote one of the great scores, Promises.
Wonderful score.
But he had a terrible experience on Broadway, and he vowed never to do a Broadway show.
Why did it not work?
Well,
I saw it in London. I thought it was great.
It's a great show. No, but this is what he has said in interviews, and people have talked about that. He couldn't stand to hear the songs different every night in the theater, that he's such a perfectionist.
Really?
In the recording studio, you can make it exactly the way he wants it, and that's the way it is forever.
Well, you do have to do it.
That's interesting, because I saw Burt in concert not long ago, and it was I didn't quite know what was coming, except obviously there'd be a few hits, and he came on, and he had some great singers, and he sang a little bit himself, and an orchestra, and he began with a medley a medley of about 9 number ones. And I thought, he won't have anything left. He's wasting these great songs. Then he said, I'd now like to do a few songs that have been successful for me in films. And he did a medley of 9 other great songs. And I realized that if he did all his hits in full, we'd still be there. I mean, what a catalogue.
Yeah.
It was absolutely fascinating. I mean, he did do some of his even greatest of the great in full, like, you know, What the World Needs Now, I Say a Little Prayer, you know, Walk On By, but Trains and Boats and Planes, I mean, you name them. And the fact that my little song's in there is so exciting for me.
Tim Rice, it's a great treat having you on Theatre Talk. Thanks for coming around.
Much.
And let us know when the Machiavelli play comes up.
Yeah, and Michael can be your consultant.
You'll be the second to hear.
Thank you.
Bangkok, Oriental City.